Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good afternoon everybody. Sunday evening, I should say. Militiaman and Crew here. Welcome to everybody. If you guys are new here and you haven't seen that we have a Patreon and Discord chat room, you guys got to stop over at patreon.com/MMANDCREW, MM and Crew, and visit us there. We'll get you jumped in. If you go into the Discord chat room, you'll be welcomed there by Gigi. She does a wonderful job, and you'll be able to see throughout late at the night into the early morning, throughout the mid-morning through Eastern Standard Time effectively. You'll see that Samson loads the Discord chat room with a lot of work for me, to where I go into the forum and do my analysis through many different articles. Not every one, but as many as I can. It's a lot of work. And I appreciate your support for being here tonight. Hey, obviously you guys are aware of this. This is nothing new, and I'll just touch on it briefly. But it's been in the news for the last couple of days. A couple of days back, early on, they mentioned that the Al-Sudani Prime Minister is going to be in Washington with our president. That's going to be on the 15th. We know that Taif, Sami, finance minister, she's been, she arrived in London the other day, and prior to that, Faud Hussein showed up. He's the foreign minister. He showed up in the United States in Washington, and so they've been having intensive meetings and so forth, and we'll touch a little bit on those things. But on back to Taif Sami, she landed in Europe. And we also know that the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, Iraq has a session to that, and that's a big deal because of the nature of the circumstances. And we also just feedback, we'll remember that the FAMOSA, which was the federation that Iraq linked to for building industrial cities or industrial parks, those types of things. It's going to be a big thing because of this bank, European Development Bank. It says Minister Taif Sami Mohammed met with the president of the European Bank of Reconstruction. His name is Odell Rano Basso at the banker's headquarters in the United Kingdom. The Ministry of Finance said in a statement. So they go on to say that the minister points out the importance of the strategic partnership. And we've heard a lot about partnerships, and you can probably hear a lot more about those partnerships, international partnerships. But they discuss ways to strengthen bilateral relations. You're going to hear lots of things talking about the strategic framework. The United States having bilateral agreements outside of the strategic framework going into the future, because of those 84 countries that are involved in the coalition they have a say in it. They're going to be negotiating into the future. So things will be changing somewhat on a different level, but still the same people doing the same thing. Trying to keep security and stability is going to be one of their main things. But they discuss ways to strengthen these bilateral relations to ensure the possibility of strengthening the private sector. That's what we're hoping for. And the digitizing of the banking system. So that's where Taif is. She's over there in London. One of the priorities of the Iraqi government is to invest in the fields of energy and digital transformation in financial infrastructures. So the president of the European Bank confirms the desire to work with Iraq. And of course, they're going to be working with Iraq to do what? Help support the private sector and in renewable energies. So ultimately, keep in mind, when you hear things like they want the American forces to leave, they want less influence. Okay, great. But think about this. As far as the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the largest stakeholder in that bank is the United States. So have that little food for thought. Customs delivers approximately 10,000 containers within a week, according to the IQD system. There you go. These guys, they said it was irreversible. Well, here they're giving you some statistics. It says the authority said in a statement that during the week from March 15th through the 21st, it completed the transactions of 9,545 containers and were cleared by importers in the major welcome yard, according to the IQD system, which began to be applied on the third month of this year, which is this month. Okay, it says the authority calls on importers and customs exit agents to join the training courses to evaluate, to train them to work on the ESCUDA system, which will provide them with more facilities and speed up the process of clearing the goods within a record time, as well as save more time, effort, and money away from paper transactions and their negative procedures. Okay, you can see where that's going, even with salary payments, electronic payments. They're all going away from the paper. They're going to go to a digital transformation. So it's pretty good. Basically, this is a powerful part that the system in all its custom centers, that all goods received to Iraq will pass through this IQD system soon, and this will be reflected on the imports it obtains significantly and will provide double revenues that will support the state's treasury. And so that's a reiteration of what we've been talking about for all these years, is that the IQD system, once it's fully up and running and implementing, it will double their income, which is powerful, which in turn supports their real effective exchange rate. So once you just add in all the extras above and beyond oil, as you can see, they talk about just the taxes, taxes and tariffs and customs. We'll double the revenues. It's pretty fascinating. Iraq and America discusses the Iranian financial dues in the Commercial Bank of Iraq. So it says the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs, Faud Hussein, he's still here in Washington, discussing with the U.S. Treasury Under Secretary Brian Nelson. One of the topics is the financial dues that are going through the Commercial Bank of Iraq. Says a statement from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Faud Hussein met with the U.S. Treasury Secretary, and they discussed issues and files of common interest and stressed the importance of achieving development in order to develop the financial and banking sector and reforms undertaken by the Central Bank of Iraq. And in another axis, they say, Iranian financial dues were discussed. They don't specifically say what it's all about, but they tell you that it's located in the Trade Bank of Iraq and how to deal with payments from this framework. So I believe that they're going to be, Iran has been a trading partner to help Iraq with electricity. So obviously payments of 4 billion, ever so often 11 billion, you hear that. So they're working on that stuff, I'm assuming. Basically, it looks like these meetings that they're taking effect between the two countries are pushing and achieving development in the financial and banking sectors. They're basically effectively the two people, Taif, Sami, and Finance Minister, and her colleague, the Foreign Minister. They're basically talking about the same things, two different countries across the globe, and it's about what? Finance and banking, security, and the future of the United States and relationships and partnerships with Iraq. So all of that stuff is happening. It said that Faud was probably going to only be there for a few days, and he's already been there for a few days, so maybe he's coming home. And maybe Taif Sami is coming home as well, which will place all three, Taif Sami, Faud Hussein, and Al-Sudani in the country at the same time, which would be interesting, because if they have anything to do or more to do with regard to the 2023, 24, and 25 budget and the schedules that are supposedly at the hands of the Prime Minister and or his advisors. We saw that yesterday. We should see what they do this coming week. Interesting sidebar, if you guys remember the prosecution, or well, the theft of the century, it looks like they've got about 6 to 8 different warrants out for arrests around the world. And they've issued those warrants to the International Police, Interpol, to arrest former senior officials in the former federal government on charges related to the issue of the theft of tax deposits, what is known in the media as the theft of the century. So it looks like back in August, around August 8th of 2023, the defendants became the former head of the National Intelligence Service, Judge Rayed Juhil Hamad Al-Saidi, the director of the private office of the foreign prime minister, Mustafa Al-Kathimi, and his advisor. That gentleman was the former president, Mustafa Al-Kathimi. He's not being charged. It's his underlings, okay? So anyway, I won't get into all the names, but they are quite a few people at senior levels. Arrest warrants were based on the letter from the Federal Integrity Commission to prosecute them outside Iraq, so they're going across borders, and put those charges against them in accordance with the provisions of Article 316 of their code. So press conference was held, and the Iraq judge indicated that these red notices or warrants were organized for these people, and they're going to go after them as much as they possibly can, and they're asking Americans and the British to, and I think Turkey, to help them probably get those folks and track the money. I believe the money amounts they talked about were about 3.7 trillion dinars, and that's about $2.5 billion that was stolen. So you can think about that for a minute. If in fact Iraq's at about 111 billion in reserves, if they clawed back another, I'd say 2.5 billion, yeah, look how big their reserves will grow. Here's another sidebar to what we've been talking about lately. It says the expectations of the arrival of the 2024 budget schedules next week. Okay, so they're gearing again for that. We heard that they were held up by the Prime Minister, not necessarily his job, and the advisor, but they said that they did that yesterday. So, but they're now saying that they will arrive next week to the House of Representatives. What we believe is probably likely to be the case if they have an exchange rate change, the chances of them giving it to the House of Representatives prior to, so that they can mull it over, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but we're going to have to find out. The Finance Committee will begin as soon as the schedules arrive to conduct discussions and audits before referring them to the House of Representatives for a vote, pointing out that it's not possible to determine the nature of the items and points, but in any case, they will differ greatly from the 2023 budget. So something's up, something's going to be different than the 2023 budget, but they were all supposed to be in sequence and probably only have small adjustments because of oil pricing. Well, the only thing we've seen oil do recently is go up. The 2024 budget tables are important in order to set a ceiling on public spending and the resources for functioning state projects, or financing, state projects and securing financial allocations. So that's what we're up against for next week. Next week started today, so as far as they're concerned anyway. So let's see what happens tomorrow and throughout the week. Several other topics from Al-Sudani's portfolio during his visit to Washington, most notably the American withdrawal. This is a big article. It's a couple pages, but it's interesting. But what they're getting into is, even though that we knew about this, they're giving a little bit more information from Al-Sudani and what they're talking about and so forth. But it says the Sudanese advisor to the bilateral relations are governed by the Strategic Framework Agreement, which I already talked about, with America and other countries of the world that participated in the war against ISIS. Therefore, our normal relationship will continue, returning to the stage before the fall of Mosul. Effective bilateral relations on the political, economic, defense, cultural, and educational aspects, as well as the risks that arise. It threatens global security, and on this basis, we return to the country's supreme national interest to be the ruler of these foreign relations of the Iraqi state after the tasks of international coalition are terminated. So what they're basically saying is they want to go back to a bilateral situation, and that meaning Iraq and United States have one-on-one, Great Britain one-on-one, and 84 other countries one-on-one with each other. That's what I was telling you about earlier. That's how it works. Therefore, Iraq is moving towards these bilateral relationships with the United States and those other 84 countries. So ultimately, what they're basically going to get to is that they're going to be supporting their people, the young, the up-and-coming people, and supporting the strategic fields that are transforming Iraq. One of those transformations is the Al-Faud port. It's a strategic project, and it's linked to what? The development road. The development road is going to be one of those things that's going to create all this wealth and money. Like I said, the Reconstruction Bank, owned by the United States. So every one of those bank deals, in some shape or form, the United States is going to be involved in that. So if you don't If you want to look that up, just Google that, see who the largest stakeholder is in that bank, and you'll find it. It's pretty easy, quick and easy. He points out that the visit for Al-Sudani of America and his participation in the meetings of the United Nations General Assembly. Remember that? That was back in September. That's back when they said that they were going to help with the global financial system. Holding the series of meetings with senior American leaders, in addition to his strategic communications with the American president and vice president, and his meetings with American officials visiting Iraq, strengthened the relationship between the two countries. So that's what they did back in September of 2023. It's kind of a reiteration. He's saying that the Iraqi government is working towards governance of foreign exchange management in Iraq through two paths. So we're talking about foreign exchange, here we're talking about money. The path of the Central Bank of Iraq and the path of the Ministry of Finance. Reform for the banking sector in order to contribute to development, investment, and financing for the private sector projects. Just like we've been talking about, they're not deviating from it. He goes on to say that these projects that operate in Iraq in terms of financial facilities, as well as practical management, they go on with foreign exchange from abroad to inside, and in return also the settlement of commercial accounts and other banking matters, which would be cross-border payments, it looks like. Okay, so anyway, you guys get that. The rest of the bottom line is that he's going to meet on the 15th here in the United States, and they're going to talk about the strategic framework. I already mentioned that. In addition to discussing ongoing Iraq financial reforms to promote economic development and progress towards Iraq's energy independence. And the snippet that I found, it's basically when I Googled my search, it says, who is the biggest shareholder of European Bank for Reconstruction and Development? Answer, it says the United States. So I find it fascinating. I mean, think about it. In one aspect, al-Sadr wants the United States Embassy, and he wants the American forces to go away. Okay, but we're going to do the Development Road project, right? All of this is about money. And the United States has, a significant amount of foreign reserves, and not just Iraq. There's many countries out there, okay? So anybody that the United States has currencies, and when Iraq adjusts their exchange rate, as our crew member Petra likes to say, all boats rise with the tide. So all those boats that own Iraqi dinar are going to rise. And the United States is going to be part of that process with that Development Road project. And see how cheap it's going to be to build that country by raising the value because they have a real effective exchange rate. You can see where the deals are going to be made. It's going to be phenomenal. The last thing, let's see, there has been attempts to pass the oil and gas law. They're talking about that it won't, they say in one sentence, it says it won't be passed soon, but the session will end with its approval and it will not be postponed to the next session. So look, we all know that they literally bounced us around back and forth, but the bottom line is, in my opinion, is that you're not going to see the oil and gas law until you see an exchange rate change. They're going to have asset valuation for that, and we have not seen anything other than 1310, and the reason for that is because, good question, they're just not ready yet. Today, tomorrow, we'll see. I don't know. The finance minister conducts an inspection to visit the real estate in Britain. Here again, this is pretty interesting because what is she doing? She's going to the Rafidane Bank and the Iraqi reinsurance company building. For what? Inspect them, to look at them, to make sure that they're up to snuff. And if they have problems, they need to fix them. And why are they doing that if you're staying at 1310? They're not. Obviously, they're going to be a representation to where they were in the past. This visit included following up on the properties, reviewing the details, and identifying the most important problems they suffer from, and promise to find appropriate solutions for them and invest in them in a correct manner as they are located, as they notice them or find them, in the most important commercial and economic centers in the international financial markets. That's where these banks are, and which is the United Kingdom, which represents the largest center in the world. So Iraq is going to be taking her place back in that global financial system. The article before talked about the General Assembly system. That's where you heard from the World Bank and all the other entities that were in the General Assembly, that Iraq is coming back to the international stage and is going to be the confidence, just as they said in Davos. Restore confidence. Remember that? You've heard it over and over again. Hear it again. That is there this weekend. So the next one is that Baghdad's upcoming meeting between Baghdad and Washington. Basically, they're just stating there's some things that are going on that are just flat out that are critical and complex steps that Iraq is going through. And so who's going to be helping them? The United States Treasury. And what are they going to be doing? It says the central bank is proceeding in coordination and great cooperation with the U.S. Treasury and the global financial system in accordance with banking and financial reform strategy adopted by the government in the government curriculum and with high discipline in accordance with international standards for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. So I said that before, earlier on, the UN Assembly, global financial system, here again today, or yesterday. No, wait, that was about 8 hours ago, 10 hours ago. That was from Al-Sudani. So when that man talks, we all listen. It says the World Bank reports confirm that the economy moved during the Sudanese government, which is Al-Sudani's government, from fragility to now recovery. So if you think about it, if they're in a recovery now, that tells you good signs. People are pleased. The World Bank says recovery. They had Article 4 consultation with the IMF, and they have an excellent report on that. So keep that in mind as well. It says here, though, the leaders will reaffirm their commitment to the Strategic Framework Agreement and will work to deepen their shared vision for a secure, sovereign, prosperous Iraq that is fully integrated into the broader region. Key statement, integrated into the broader region. That's language that you would think that the WTO would be talking about, integration. That's exactly what they are about. So that's a fascinating statement. Here's another fascinating statement. It says they will also discuss ongoing Iraq financial reforms to promote economic development and progress towards Iraq's energy independence and modernization. So they're not leaving that alone. They're focusing in on it. Another thing here is that the Iraqi amounts deposited in the American Federal Bank will be discussed while Al-Sudani's here, and bilateral relations will also be discussed again, commercial economic exchange. So that's big. Others circumstances are considered of great importance is for understanding how to deal with pressures to remove American forces on the one hand and Iranian pressure on the other hand. So Iraq's kind of in a tough spot when it comes to that. But that's the stuff that they're working on while they're here in America and in the UK. The two leaders, they go on to say that the United States has a commitment to Iraq's security and assistance in fighting terrorism, and they basically have an agreement to help their citizens and fulfill their aspirations. So ultimately here, they will also be talking about the presence of American forces and also the suffering of the Iraqi dinar. So they're talking about having a dialogue about the suffering of the Iraqi dinar. Well, what if raising the value of their currency is going to stop the suffering? So that's pretty powerful in that respect too. Another thing I brought up real fast was the Ministry of Planning. They have a statement here. It says where the Private Sector Development Council, in its permanent capacity, in the preparation of the rules and procedures for this council, noting that work is currently underway to implement the project of equipping the laboratories of the Central Organization for Standardization and Quality Control for Marketing Centers of Standards, Gold, and Silver at airports and the modernization and maintenance of the laboratories of this device. So ultimately, what are they doing? They're really getting ready for the contractors and everybody to knock it out of the park and get going. So last thing I'm going to talk about, and it's just a brief, is that they need electricity, they need full-time internet to do all their smart banking, smart cards, all that stuff, and they have people underway to help in that manner to have that full-time internet, all that to keep this private sector ready to go. So the engine's running, and we're waiting for them to put it in gear. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the conversation we had this evening on Sunday. And everybody, thank you again. God bless. Have anybody who wants to hit that subscribe button, hit those like buttons, and if you want to keep that content going, we have those options. We have Zelle, Venmo, and PayPal to help keep this place up and running. Thank you very much, everybody. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.